Put your hands together for Ilse Ramirez.
Thank you. It's May 2011, and I'm 24 years old. I just married my teenage sweetheart, and Tony and I are perfect. We both grew up in Southwest Detroit, so we know the struggle. We're both super ambitious, but most important, he and I both want to have this huge family, right? We're Mexican, Italian, 6 to 7 kids. We got this. So we soon start practicing, and nope, we don't got this. We had never met anyone that had planned a pregnancy. So, we had to do our research, we worked out, we changed our diet, we, went ahead and took all the stressors off our lives, our parents. Just kidding. And finally, a year and a half later, we were able to conceive. February of 2013, I give birth to the most precious boy ever. He's fat and has these chunky thighs, and he's just perfect, right? So Tony and I decide that we're going to expose our children to everything that we didn't get to experience. So baby Tony is like in Montessori at 2. He's traveled everywhere by 3, Disney, everywhere. And by 4, I'm putting him in piano because I have high expectations. I used to be like paging Dr. Bonaquisti, and my 4-year-old would be like, yes, ma'am? That's what I was raising a doctor. So it was Sunday fun days, exploring our city, exposing him to cultures, going to museums, and I'm killing motherhood. I'm in heels, pushing a stroller, drinking a Starbucks. Life is good. We decide to have baby number 2, and that's easy. That happened real quick. And that pregnancy is different. I am not feeling pretty no matter what I try. I'm swollen, I'm not keeping food down, and at 7 months, I experienced what I think is a migraine, and it's really not. It was a pituitary anindoma, which is basically a tumor in my pituitary gland, and it hemorrhaged. But being the mom that I am, I pushed through. I went to the ER, and they said, you have 2 options. You get surgery, and we can assess what really is going on, but you're probably going to have a miscarriage. Or you can wait it out. And I waited it out. I wasn't going to harm my baby. So 16 days later, I was like, okay, this was a mini vacation. I get out. I'm coming home to a new house, preparing a nursery. I'm graduating from U of M Dearborn with honors. I'm the first to graduate in my house. So that was a big deal. Thank you. So it's a big deal. So no symptoms, I'm pushing through. February of 2017, I give birth to another gorgeous baby. And I'm just like, God, I'm just meant to have babies because they're just adorable. So we come home, and my oldest is like the best big brother ever, and he's helping me get bottles ready and diapers. And I immediately notice that there's an issue. Like my mom gut is like, something's not right. I sing to my boys to put them to bed, and Mateo, my baby, he wouldn't like search for my voice. And I'm like, could he be blind? So I tell the pediatrician, and the pediatrician's like, you're just overprotective. He's fine. He's a week old. We wait 2 weeks. Nope, no improvement. Actually, it's getting worse. Now the entire family is telling me I'm overprotective, but I know in my heart something's wrong with my baby. One Friday morning, he wakes up and he's crying, unconsolably crying, and I can't get him to stop crying. I'm rocking him, I'm feeding him, I'm bathing, and nothing. And at that point, I start crying. We're both crying. Like 6 hours later go by, and he stops crying out of nowhere. And I look at his little face in the light, and his left eye has a haze. And I know something's wrong, so I tell my husband, you need to come see this. And he's like, you're overprotecting him. We're going to see a doctor in 2 days. I'm like, That Saturday morning, I take him to the ER. And this day is kind of a blur, comes and goes. The doctor tells me that the haze, it's actually total retinal detachment. My 1-month-old has bilateral retinoblastoma. It's cancer of both eyes. There's huge tumor in the left eye. There's no saving it. And the right eye has 2 little tumors. And now I'm trying to keep it together. And at this moment, I was like, God spoke to me. He said, this is why you went through what you went through a few years ago when your dad died, and why you advocated for your father. Because it was preparing you to advocate for the one person you need to advocate for. And this is your son. So whatever it is that you experience there, you're going to have to take it times 10 here. So I was like, okay, no tears, keep it pushing. Come Monday, like a day and a half, right? Monday morning, they're removing his eye. He's getting 3 types of chemotherapies, and we're waiting on a biopsy because he tells me, if the cancer spread, you might as well bury your child. So you're like I'm trying to hold it together, and you have your family looking at you, and now I'm an immigrant daughter. Like, they're all looking at me for strength, and I'm just trying to hold it all together. And I'm sitting there with my husband in this isolated room on the oncology floor, and it's like the darkest you've ever seen. If anybody ever wants to see hopelessness, you go to an oncology pediatric floor, and every parent there has it. It's so heavy, and it's so dark, and you're carrying the weight on the world on your shoulders, and you want to be there for your child, but you're thinking, like, life doesn't stop. I still got a mortgage to pay. I still got bills that are coming. I still got an oldest son at home. How am I supposed to juggle? While my son is struggling to get this chemo and almost stop breathing on us. Like, you can't. And you don't have a moment to cry because they're looking at you for strength. 13 rounds later, 2 radiations later, a radioactive plaque put in his right eye. But we here. We made it. Thank God, right? Yes. 2 years later, we're in remission. And let me tell you, it's the best day of my life. I'm like so happy. Like, we finally made it. I worked this hard. I got my son here. I got my oldest here. We're a unit. We're together. We got this. So we enjoy remission. I get to see what it is to be a mother to 2 healthy boys. And don't ever take that for granted. So I'm happy, and I'm like, my only goal is to make sure that he doesn't have any delays from chemo. Because I'm that mom, right? So I put him in physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech. And we go to the speech evaluation, and she looks at me, and she's giving me the schedule. And she says, so when does he start behavioral therapy? I said, behavioral therapy for what? She's like, oh, because he's autistic. I said, what? This is a joke, right? Like, there's a camera in here somewhere. And she's like, oh, you've never heard of that? I'm not an expert, but I'm 90% sure your son's autistic. And I froze. See, the cancer I could handle. There was 2 outcomes. Either we were going to fight or I was going to bury my child. But I had it. Autism. I can't handle that. I don't know what that looks like. Where do I start? I grabbed my son that day, and I went to a safe place because, we don't cry because that shows weakness, right? That's what I'm thinking. So I go to my car, and I calm down, and I shed a few tears, and I look up at the sky, and I say, what the fuck is your plan up there? Because I'm at a loss. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm angry. Like, I was beyond angry. I was like, God, I've been a good Christian. I was raised Catholic. I did everything right. I got married. I broke every statistic. I grew up in the worst neighborhood. I graduated with a college degree. What is this? And how do I control this? Like, this has to be a joke. He didn't respond. So I looked at myself and I was like, you're going to get it together because you're an immigrant daughter who's breaking so many barriers. And this is not going to take you down. You're going to strap up your boots and you're going to keep pushing. And if you're going to go at war with autism, then you got to go at war with autism because this is not going to break you. So I did that. I said, I'm not going to cry. I'm going to grab my kid, and we're going to do whatever we have to do. The only problem is that when your life becomes a battlefield, you forget to live, and you merely survive. And we were surviving. My son was in every therapy possible, but I was angry. And I wasn't really angry. I was projecting anger. I was sad. And I didn't know how to express that. And I was in a very dark place. All my relationships were struggling. I had given up this dream job, and I had taken a job that had benefits for my child, a job that I would have never gone into. And I was angry about that. My marriage was falling apart. My relationship with my mother was struggling because, you know, when you have an autistic child, everybody wants to tell you how to be a mom. Yet, I don't see anybody else trying to be a mom to my child. So it was hard. Everything was falling apart. And autism in our house, there's a saying that says if you meet one autistic person, you've only met one autistic person. And autism in our house is a little different. You know, doctors consider my son severely autistic. He's nonverbal. He has sensory processing disorder, which means he hates clothes. His diet struggles. He has 2 items, Cheez-Its and chicken nuggets, and they better be from McDonald's. If you knock on my door at 2 o'clock, you're going to be greeted by a very tall 6-year-old who's butt naked. And he probably wants to jump on you because he loves textures of hair. He's the best. And it's hard, though, right? Like, all these Sunday fun days, they stopped. That was out the window. Vacations was out the window. Going to family events was out the window because society is a cruel place to raise someone who's different. They stare. Oh, and when you stare at my baby, it's fighting words. Don't stare, right? Like, now I'm mad. Everything was falling apart. And finally, December of 2022, I get an opportunity to leave for work. It's a big opportunity because it's 4 months that I'm leaving. And I'm like, do I want to do this? I'm like, I need to do this. My marriage is suffering. Like, maybe space is good, right? So I get to where I'm getting, and I have this solitude and this silence, and nobody's looking at me for strength. And I cry. And I never cried before. And I ugly cry. I have tears running down my eyes. I'm like hyperventilating. I'm turning red, like the whole nine, right? Then I can't stop crying. And I'm like, oh, I got to go to work. I can't keep crying. Finally, I get therapy. And therapy in my culture is taboo. We don't do that. So my therapist said something so profound to me. She said, I give you the right to grieve. And I had so much to grieve. So I took 4 months to grieve. I was grieving my dad's death. I was grieving a marriage. I was grieving a perception of motherhood that wasn't what I perceived. I was grieving a career loss. I was grieving everything I tried to control. And I came back after those 4 months, and I was like, we can't live like this anymore. And I put my oldest in therapy. I separated. My husband and I are now best friends, which I call him my life partner. It's weird. But we needed to separate. And I set boundaries with people that loved me the most but didn't know how to have them. And that was hard. Setting those boundaries with people. And then I realized that I needed to let go of control. That once you let go of control, everything falls apart. But falling apart is so beautiful because it makes room for transformation and for new beginnings. And for new things to come. And I said, I could be mad at autism and cancer forever, but that's not going to get me anywhere. So I'm like, okay, it's not the autism and the cancer that are making me sad. It's myself. It's the thinking of what yesterday could have been and what tomorrow will be. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be stagnant and present for today. And I'm going to be fluid with life. And if life wants to throw me another one, bring it on, right? That's where we were at. So I did all of that, and it worked out fine. And I realized I can't pour into a cup if I don't pour into myself. So I set new career goals. Yes, I'm a mom. but that's not all that I am. I have a career. I can love what I do or I can hate it. And every morning I choose to love it because everybody makes a difference in what they do. Just by coming in and saying, good morning, it makes a difference. So I was going to do that. And I did. And I started socializing with other moms on the spectrum, and we share resources, and it's a safe space to talk. And then I was like, I'm no longer going to hide my son. If you don't like what my son looks like, that's your problem. I'm going to adjust the world for him. So now we go to the movies, and a movie experience for him is different. He sits out of the movie theater and waits for his dad and his brother to come out. And when they come out, he gets so excited, and we just waited there for 2 hours. And he starts clapping and waving his hands, and he runs to them. And then we skip to the car, and that's a movie experience for him. And that's all that matters. And he's in T-ball now, and it's a special, like a all-inclusive T-ball, and it looks like a mess. It's okay. He doesn't know any better. He's like, the ball's over here. He's over there picking flowers. Doesn't matter. He's having fun. The most important thing in motherhood is my kids don't need a strong mom. They need a happy mom. Thank you.
Ilse Ramirez.